Now we're going to be converting between decimals and percents. Oh my goodness. Let me tell you, this is Beyonce's favorite thing to do in math. This is Beyonce's favorite thing. You don't have to write that. I just need y'all to remember that this is Beyonce's favorite. All right, so first off, we need to talk about what is a percent. And to talk about that, let's break up this word. Percent. 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 It breaks up kind of similarly in English and in Spanish. So per, like por, in Spanish means for. For this mathematical purpose, we're going to put for each. Per means for each. And cent means 100. If you think about a century, that's 100 years long. A cent, like a penny, there's 100 cents in a dollar. Ciento is 100. Per ciento, for each 100. And that's what we're talking about. When we're talking about percents, if I have 100 pieces, how many of them are shaded in? Percent means for each 100. So here, we talked about this last class, that visual representation. So if I have 10, 20, 30, 40 out of 100, that's 4/10. 40 out of 100, that's 4/10, which would be 40%, because there's 40 shaded in for each 100. That's 40%. 4%, very different. 4% means I have 4 shaded in for every 100. Again, place value matters. This is 4/10, this is 4/100. Very different. Very different. 4 100ths would be 4%. 4 were shaded in out of each 100. So be very careful with place value. I can't stress it enough. Pull out your chart if you need to. There's a few different ways that we can convert back and forth between percents and decimals. Again, we know percent means for every 100. So if I'm trying to go from a percent to the decimal, a percent to a decimal, what I can do is I can move my decimal point to the left 2 times. To the left 2 times. Beyonce, how do I move a percent to a decimal? What do I do with my decimal point? How do I move it? Okay, can you say that one more time? Okay, I think I got it. One more time. To the left, to the left. Move that decimal 2 points to the left. Do you see what I did there? We move our decimal to the left, to the left. To go from the percent to the decimal. So like up here, if I had 40%, do you see a decimal in the percent? It's at the end, it's invisible, it's imaginary. Remember, math people, we don't write decimals if we don't have to. And this is one of those situations where I don't have to. Like Beyonce says, I move that decimal point to the left, and I put it right there. It becomes 0.4, just like I had before. Over here, I have 4%. Where's the decimal if I don't see it? It's at the end, right here. And I still move it to the left, I still move it 2 times. But I have an extra jump in there. What do you think is going to go in my extra jump? A 0. Just like when we were doing powers of 10, we were filling in with our zeros. So this would be 0.04, just like we have up here. So to go from a percent to a decimal, listen to Beyonce and move your decimal. I'm so funny. So funny. So this is Beyonce's favorite thing to do. To go from a decimal to a percent is just the opposite. To go from a percent to a decimal, I move it to the right 2 times. I have my decimal, I move it to the right, I move it 2 times. So here, this was 0.04. If I move it to the right, and I put in my percent, that became 4%. If I move my decimal point to the right, put in my decimal, fill in my 0, it becomes 40%. So it depends which way you're trying to go. Percent means how many shaded out of 100. Those numbers are getting bigger. While when you move it to a percent, it's getting smaller. Or when you move to a decimal, it's getting smaller. So quick review. To go from a percent to a decimal, move it 2 places to the left, like Beyonce says, or you can divide by 100. Because when I divide by 100, essentially what I'm doing is I'm moving that decimal to the left. Let's see what that looks like on the calculator. You don't have to do this. If I do 5 divided by 100, 5 pieces for every 100, that's 0.05. If I do the opposite of that, I do 0.82 times 100, because I'm trying to turn it into a percent. How many pieces out of 100 would be colored in? It would be 82. So we're just moving that decimal to the left or to the right, depending on what we're trying to do. If we're trying to go from a percent to a decimal, we move away from the percent sign. I want to move away from a percent. But if I want to turn my number into a decimal, I move my decimal to where the percent would go. Let me pause real quick while I white out these type years. All right, so let's start on this side. Turn percents into decimals. So if they don't give you a decimal point, where do we have to put it? At the end. And we move it what direction? I'm trying to get away from the percent. I'm trying to move it to a decimal, so we're going to move it to the left, So 64% becomes 0.64. 2.9%, this time they have a decimal for us, so you don't have to add one in. We're going to move that decimal point how many places away from the percent? 2 times. And we fill in that empty jump with a 0. So 2.9% becomes 0.029. Pause the video, try the next two on your own. 7% becomes 0.07. And this one's a little tricky. I move it to the left, I get 0.5, and I see these 5s are just repeating. So I can just put my repeating sign on top of that 1 5. That works. Decimal to a percent, I'm moving my decimal to where the percent should be. So I'm moving it to the right, or multiplying times 100, and you put the percent sign at the end. This one, the percents are usually going to be there, but we might see some without. So here, I move my decimal point 2 times to the right, and this becomes 9%. The percent sign, just like they have up there, 2 circles with a slash through it. 3.5%, I move it to the right, fill in with a 0, becomes 350%. Sometimes you'll see people have their top 0 connected to the line, and that's okay too. Pause the video, try those next two on your own. The top one, move it to the right, you had to add the decimal at the end, it wasn't there. So this became 4,440%. That's crazy, but it's possible. It's possible to have more than 100%. On your tests, you can only get 100%, but maybe sometimes there's extra credit on a test, you could get over 100%. Maybe in business, you'll see people's sales for products grow more than 100%. That's possible. It's possible. And this last one gets a little tricky because we have that repeating. So instead of filling in spaces with zeros, what would we fill in with? We'd fill in with 2s. So this would become 22.2 repeating percent, very similar to what we had over here. very similar to what we had over here. Most of the time, they will usually round to the nearest percent or the nearest hundredth. Again, it is possible to get more than 2 numbers past the decimal place, but for our purposes, instead of writing 2's forever and ever, instead of writing 5's forever and ever, we usually just round to the nearest percent. All right. Now, what we want you to do is to go try a few more on your own from this paper from last class. My kids, if you lost this paper, it's your lucky day. It's on the other half of this page. But I recommend if you already have this page, there's more space for you to draw and write on it. So feel free to go back and use this paper to help you do a little bit more practice. Goodbye.